For 2,000 years, you have been told that Jesus founded Christianity. He did not. The man from Nazareth never spoke the word. He never built an institution. He never wrote a creed. And the religion that bears his name was assembled, brick by brick, in the centuries after his death. This is the story you were never taught in church. This is not a question of mere doctrine. If Jesus did not come to start a religion, then everything that has been built in his name must be reconsidered. The buildings, the hierarchies, the centuries of warfare fought over the right way to remember a man who never asked to be remembered this way. I am not here to attack your faith. I am here to ask whether what you have inherited is what was actually given. Because what the earliest sources reveal is stranger than what the pulpit tells you. The familiar story goes like this. Jesus of Nazareth, born in poverty, executed under Rome, rose from the dead and commissioned his disciples to take his gospel to all nations. From that command grew the church. From the church grew Christianity. From Christianity grew the cathedrals, the councils, the doctrines that shaped the Western world. And there is something genuinely true here. Jesus did gather followers. He did say in the Gospel of Matthew, "On this rock I will build my Ekklesia." He did institute a meal of bread and wine that his followers were told to repeat. He did send them, after his death, into the wider world. The church, in this telling, is not an accident. It is the natural outgrowth of what Jesus began. Without it, the message would have died in a Galilean village. And yet, there is a problem at the center of this story. A problem that becomes visible the moment you read the earliest sources in their original language. The word the church translated as church did not mean what you think it meant. The Greek word Jesus uses in Matthew 16 is ekklesia. In our Bibles, it is translated church. But in the first century, ekklesia was not a religious word at all. It meant assembly, a gathering of citizens called out from their homes for a public purpose. The word appears in Greek civic life centuries before Jesus was born. It described the town meeting, not the temple. When Jesus said he would build his ekklesia, he did not say he would build a religion. He said he would gather a people. There is a difference, and the difference is everything. Now consider what the followers of Jesus called themselves in the decades immediately after his death. They did not call themselves Christians. They did not call themselves a church. In the book of Acts, written by a companion of the Apostle Paul, the earliest disciples are called something else entirely. They are called the Way. The Greek is hodos. It means road, path, a direction one walks in. The word appears 6 times in Acts to describe the movement of Jesus' followers. In chapter 9, in chapter 19, in chapter 22, in chapter 24, where Paul himself stands trial and says, "According to the way which they call a sect, I worship the God of our fathers." Path, a direction, a way of walking through the world, not a religion, not a creed, not a building. The word Christian itself appears only 3 times in the entire New Testament, and it was not given by the followers of Jesus. According to Acts 11:26, the name was applied to them by outsiders in the city of Antioch. It was almost certainly a label applied from the outside looking in, a nickname for a group whose actual self-understanding was something quieter and stranger than the word Christian could carry. And this is only the beginning of what was buried. You might be thinking this is wordplay. The names changed, but the institution Jesus founded is real. He chose Peter. He gave him keys. He said, "Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven." Surely this is the founding of a religion. Surely the man knew what he was doing. The objection is fair. It deserves to be taken seriously. But consider this. The earliest followers of Jesus, Peter included, did not stop being Jews. They continued to attend the temple. They continued to keep the Sabbath. They continued to observe the Jewish dietary laws. The book of Acts shows Peter, years after the resurrection, still hesitating to eat with Gentiles. James, the brother of Jesus, who led the Jerusalem community, was called the just by his fellow Jews because of how rigorously he kept the law. These men did not believe they had founded a new religion. They believed they had found the fulfillment of an old one. And Jesus himself said as much. In the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5:17, he is explicit. "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." The transformation from Jewish movement to separate religion did not happen during Jesus' life. It did not happen with Peter. It happened later. It happened gradually through a series of historical pressures: the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the influx of Gentile converts, the theological labor of Paul, and finally, 3 centuries on, the political instincts of an emperor named Constantine. Christianity, as a distinct religion with its own scriptures, councils, and creeds, was not given by Jesus. It was built. And the deeper you look, the more troubling the construction becomes. But there is something stranger still. The man who has been turned into the founder of the world's largest religion was, in his own lifetime, the fiercest critic of religious institutions. Read Matthew 23, slowly, without flinching. "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You travel across sea and land to make a single convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves." These are the words of a man who watched religion turn into theater, who saw priests count their tithes of mint and dill while neglecting justice and mercy and faithfulness, who looked at the elaborate scaffolding of religious life and called it, in plain Greek, tifloi hodgoi, blind guides. The harshest words in the Gospels are not aimed at sinners. They are aimed at the religious establishment. This is the man we have made the founder of the largest religious establishment in human history. There is a Greek word that appears 5 times in the New Testament, Threskia. It is sometimes translated religion. And in the letter of James, the brother of Jesus, that word is used in a way that almost no pulpit will quote. James, chapter 1, verse 27. "Pure Threskia, pure religion, before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained from the world." No mention of buildings, no mention of creeds, no mention of priesthoods, no mention of sacraments. The brother of Jesus, defining religion, named only 2 things: care for the broken and resistance to the corruption of the world. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. So why did it happen? Why did a movement that began as the way become an institution? Why did a teacher who criticized priests become the cornerstone of a priesthood? Why did a man who refused to write anything down become the subject of 2,000 years of writing? The answer is older than Christianity. It is older than religion itself. It is the human pattern of institutionalizing mystery. Every spiritual movement begins with an experience. A prophet, a teacher, a saint encounters something that breaks the ordinary world open. Followers gather. They tell the story. And then, inevitably, the followers grow old. New generations come who never met the prophet. New generations need rules. They need certainty. They need someone to tell them what to do on Tuesday morning. So the experience becomes a doctrine. The doctrine becomes a system. The system becomes an institution. And the institution, slowly, sometimes without meaning to, becomes the very thing the original prophet was warning against. This happened to the Buddha. It happened to Muhammad. It happened in different ways to almost every founder of a tradition. And it happened to Jesus. Not because anyone meant for it to, but because the human need for containment is stronger than the human capacity to live with mystery. We cannot stay long in the open air. We build walls. We build them out of love, and out of fear, and out of the desire to keep something precious from being lost. And then we forget that the walls were never the point. The walls were never the point. So what did Jesus actually come to do? If not to start a religion, then what? Read the Gospels without the centuries of architecture between you and the text. What you find is not a man assembling a system. You find a man calling individual people by name to change how they live. You find a man healing the broken without checking their credentials. You find a man eating with the wrong people, breaking the wrong laws, refusing the categories of his own religious culture. He did not come to start a religion. He came to call people out of religion into something simpler and harder. He called it the kingdom. He called it the way. He called it sometimes simply life. And the difference between inheriting a faith and understanding what was actually given may be the most important difference there is. The buildings were never the point. The councils were never the point. The right words, recited in the right order, were never the point. Path was the point. A way of walking, a direction. That is what was given, and it has been there, underneath the architecture, the entire time. I want to leave you with a question. If Christianity, as you inherited it, is not what Jesus came to give, what would change about the way you walk through tomorrow? What would you keep? What would you lay down? What would you finally allow yourself to question? Tell me in the comments which piece of the religion you were given do you most suspect was not in the original. Be specific. The conversation in the comments of this video matters more than anything I have said in it. If you are new to Sons of Dust, welcome. This channel exists for the questions that the pulpit no longer asks. If that resonates with you, consider subscribing and turning on the bell. There is more coming. Next time on Sons of Dust, the question of who Lucifer actually was. Not the figure you were taught. The figure the Hebrew text describes. A king. A morning star. A name that was never, in the original language, the name of Satan. We will trace how the confusion happened and why it has shaped Western imagination for 1600 years. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. From dust we came, and to dust we shall return.